Well, pay no mind, baby. Hard times may be the thing that you need. Sometimes things break down. Never easy fixes. Gonna find a way. We'll find a way.
Hello, Mihaela.
Hi.
And to everybody listening, I'm sure I'm going to mess her name up at some point in time, or I'll just call her Miss. Miss? No. Hey, just so I don't look silly and you feel bad that I called you by the wrong name. Welcome to the podcast. The Short Round, Brock Morrison Short Round podcast. You see the cats behind me, so it might end up being a podcats. If that would work, I think it might work. Whoa, hello. Okay. So, Mihaela, it's the same three questions, no matter who's on here. How and why you got into martial arts? What is martial arts doing in your life now? And what's your plans for martial arts? 99% of the time, I don't do any research on anybody, no matter who they are, because I don't like asking questions to answers I already know, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I know about you is I've watched you fight, and are you a karate practitioner, as they would say?
Yeah, I grew up doing karate, so that's definitely my specialty, is my karate and my stand-up.
Okay, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring out. People, when I watched this girl fight, Mihaela, when I watched her fight, anybody sits there and says, well, karate really won't work in MMA, she will prove you wrong. 90% of that fight, you was using karate, correct?
Yeah, I will say I've been taken down in pretty much all of my fights. I will openly admit that, happily admit that. It's obviously not the thing I grew up doing, but obviously that is what I'm spending a lot of my time getting to catch up, is my ground game.
Ground game. Yeah, I saw you fight in Arena Wars against, it was around like March or something like that, in Oregon is where I seen you fight. What was her name? She's actually been at Courtney.
Oh,
I think was her name.
Yeah,
Courtney. Even she sits there and will agree that your karate was on point. Now, let's go ahead and get into the first question, because that'll also answer some of the karate questions that I have for you. How and why did you get into martial arts?
I got into martial arts when I was 4, and originally my parents were just like, we have a daughter, we should have her learn self-defense. So we went to a local martial arts school, and that's truthfully why I got into it. Was literally just my parents being like, we're going to take our kid, we're going to get her to learn some self-defense. I did one tournament, and I don't even know if I was 5 yet, and I was hooked on the competitive aspect of martial arts. But I was also hooked on the traditional aspect, going through the ranks. Like, I have my 4-3 black belt in a style called Ying. It's really easy to just classify them all under as karate. But I was hooked, and I started out doing Kaji Kembo. That was the first style I did. I eventually transitioned to Wu Ying Dao, got hooked into competing locally, regionally, and then nationally. And then we did like world tournaments. So that whole competitive nature of sport karate, I was hooked instantly. Started learning some kickboxing as a teenager, more so because I was the smallest in my division. Everybody was like 5'10". I was short, was not blessed with that height. Started learning kickboxing to hold my own ground, just being comfortable being in the pocket. And then when I started becoming an adult, I was like, what's the next challenge? Like, I've done sport karate for, however many years. And I figured the best challenge is MMA. I could nerd out on martial arts still and be a new student in Jiu Jitsu and learn wrestling and completely like start at the beginning all over again, plus have that emotional, mental, and physical challenge that I have grown up to love in karate in general.
So, I like to ask these questions, and it's weird because like everybody has a different answer. That's why I have the same 3 questions, but it doesn't matter because everybody's answers are different. Sometimes, it's on the line of, why they started all self-defense or things like that. But how was it? You said you was like between 4 and 5, right? Or 4 years old?
Yep.
How was it when you walked the first time into your dojo? How was that? How was you feeling?
I remember being so excited. I wasn't old enough. Their start age was 5 years old. My parents said I had a great attention span. I listened really well. So they were like, how can we get her into this class? Because I was really wanting to do what they were doing. So I had to sit and watch the whole class. And I was just amazed. I was like, I want to do that. And so it was just excitement, but I can say my very first belt testing was 6 months after I started. When I was a little kid, still don't know if I was 5 yet, but I bawled my eyes out, did not want to test. I was terrified. One of the other students' dads came out, and because my parents were like, trying to make me feel better to go in and test. I was terrified that there were teenagers, adults. There was all these black belts that I had to go and do my forms in front of and do all like my self-defense stuff in front of. And one of the parents had to come out and talk to me because I was like, I'm not gonna go in there. Like, we're gonna leave. I'm terrified. I was bawling my eyes out. It's my parents' favorite story to tell about my martial arts journey. Is like, it started with me being so excited, me being terrified, and the rest being history for me.
It's funny that you bring out, usually, and I always like to ask this question too, is, how was your parents, when you started, you sit there and said that, they was encouraging you because they wanted you to get into some kind of, self-defense or, I have a 5-year-old and she does Muay Thai, and we done that because the girl sleeps like 3 hours a night and she is nonstop from the time she wakes up to time she goes to bed. So that Muay Thai, gets some of that energy out. But how was your parents feeling, like when they went in there? Did they do any martial arts themselves before, or, but what was their feeling like? Oh, we're going to take you in there and, everything's going to, but once they got in there, did they have a different outlook on it?
I've asked my parents, I've talked to my parents a lot about how they feel about, my martial arts journey. And the older I've gotten, they've obviously been like deeper conversations with what martial arts has done like in my life and what I'm able to give back to others. My dad did, I think, like Taekwondo when he was a like little kid, only got like a yellow belt, and that was it. And my mom, like my dad played football, my mom did cheerleading, like polar, like my dad liked combat sports, but none of them really loved the idea of combat sports. But they also knew that I loved anything and everything that had to do with like a physical sport, like figure skating when I was a little kid. And I asked my mom, I was like 3 years old, if I could play hockey. Like, I liked the contact aspect. So my mom always said she wasn't shocked when I wanted to do that. And she knew I was going to be safe. She knew, like, she really trusted my instructors, and that's what set them at ease a lot of the time, was just they knew I was safe.
So let me ask you this, when you went in, maybe it wasn't your goal to be a competitive, martial artist, and maybe it wasn't their goal to have you as a competitive martial artist. How was their outlook? And, were they worried about you when you started? Because like you said, around 5, you was actually doing some kind of, as a competitor.
There's videos, I've seen my videos of me as a little kid. I've been like sidekicked and launched out of a ring before. And my dad has expressed how anxious he felt afterwards. Cause I'm the youngest. My dad has 3 kids total. My 2 older sisters are 16 years older than me. I'm the baby to my dad. I was launched clear out of a ring, had tears in my eyes, and I got up, and my dad was terrified, but my dad loved the fact that I stood up and went right back into the same environment because I wasn't scared. I was like, now I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna hold my own ground. So every nervous moment they've had, they always just, it always goes back to that, makes them more proud because I always just get back up and keep pushing. But I do know they've been terrified, and like my mom's watched my lip get busted open. Like, they've seen so much. My dad sat in my corner for 2 of my fights this past year. He was essentially holding all of the caddy stuff. But he doesn't really watch them. He was keeping track of time, but even now, much different from being 5 years old, point sparring. It's like tag, not full contact. My dad's like, he's less nervous now than he was when I was a little kid, because now he's like, he knows I'm going to do it regardless. So if he was the same nervous, he's like, my little girl's grown up. She's going to handle her own. If she gets beat up, I'll be there to hand her an ice pack type of thing at the end.
No, that's really cool that you said that. And it's really cool to have your parents behind you also. I mean, that could either help you or break you when it comes to going further, in whatever kind of career or journey that you want. And it doesn't even have to be martial arts. If you don't have them behind you, it's very hard for anybody to keep that drive going on what they wanted to do. That's like my daughter. She's would be the same as you and your sisters. Her oldest, the next in line is 15 years older than her. Mm-hmm. And then there's, 16, and then there's 17, and then there's like almost a 20-year difference, between brothers and sisters. So, that's kind of cool. Now, did they get into any kind of martial arts, or was that they're like, oh, that's little sis's thing and we're not going to do it? And how did they support you also when it came to that?
Yeah, my sisters have never gotten into martial arts whatsoever. I don't think they ever were on any like team sports when they were growing up. They're twins. They ended up they got jobs when they were 16, like immediately. They're just very busy workers, great work ethics. That was just kind of their thing. My sisters, no matter how scared they have ever been, I think they've expressed that they're probably more scared than my parents have ever expressed to me, but they will show up. One of my sisters showed up to one of my karate tournaments when I was a little kid, refused to ever go back because she could not fathom the idea of me getting punched at. She showed up to my last MMA fight. So there was probably a good, maybe 13 years, 15-year gap from the last time she saw me compete in person. She watches them all when somebody live streams it, but to go in person, she was just like, I can't wrap my head around it. But my other sister went to pretty much every fight that was local. So my sisters, I always in my head, I'm like, man, I can't get beat up in front of my sisters. I'm the baby. And as crazy as it sounds, I'm thinking about that throughout the entire time we get to that event. When my sister buys the ticket, I'm like, okay, don't get beat up. Your sister's in the crowd. They're going to cry if you get hurt. Got to protect yourself. But my sister's support has forever been endless. I get text message calls from them before my fights, after my fights. Even though there's a huge age gap, my sisters have supported me endlessly